Next, we're going to take a look at the drawing template UI. Now, the UI itself isn't that complicated, but it's deceptively more complicated when you get to the code behind and the binding. So we're going to go through this one together. I've already made the UI because there's nothing new there. The actual layout isn't that complicated at all, but we need to make sure we do the back end correct. So let's just take a look. So you can see here, I've got, if I click cancel, we've got the same layout we have in every other page. We click new, this is the same layout. And then I've added 3 combo boxes here. And this new little layout, which is similar to the other page or even this, it's basically a copy and paste of this, just an items list. A few buttons up here for deleting when we select items in here and adding because we need to browse for files. And then obviously the save and cancel just come up from the existing UI. So really nothing to cover there. It's just exactly what we've done in every other page. Let's just run the application first, make sure everything's still working. And you'll see I've gone ahead and filled out the other pages as well. And the ones we mentioned that we can just do on our own because there's nothing that complicated about them. So they're just filled out pretty much exactly as you'd expect. We probably want a file browser here. Once we're done adding it to this section, we'll probably reuse this file browser in this area here to select a path, but for now we don't have one. And this is the page we want to focus on, the drawing templates. So you can see we can create, we can write description. These aren't bound at the minute, or if they are, there's no values because we don't have them. And then we click save, go out and in, you'll see it should survive through. And what we need to do now is start binding this together. Let's start with this operation because this is the one that needs to be called set, reload, or replace. And then these two need to be visible based on that. So let's get that bit in first. We just hide the visual UI for now. We have all the code here. If you're interested and you need this, then obviously this will be in the Git commit once this video is done. So you can just see exactly how the UI was made. But it's literally the same as what we've done before. The only fix I also noticed is the button when there's nothing here. This button here, and it still does it on all the other pages, when you just fade the opacity, it being underneath actually prevents some visual effects. So I've put a Z index of 10 to bring this panel to the front, but then the problem with that, when it's just invisible, you can still click the button. So then I've tied the visibility to this actual stack panel. So I've had to name the stack panel, tie the as visible to the opacity, so that once it fades out, it then becomes invisible, because otherwise you lose the fade effect. So I've basically added Z index and name and is visible like this to fix it. If I was to remove that, so the as visible is gone, the Z index and the name is gone, and let me show you the problem I noticed, and it only really showed up on this UI because of the position of the button and the specific elements in there. So if we go to actions, drawing template, and then remember where this button is, look at the hover effect. So I'm hovering over the text, can't click it, there's no hover effect, but when I go outside of the label, I can hover. So that's a strange issue, and it does it on all of them. So you see there, you can't hover over the text, it's like intermittent, and then you get this highlight text. And it's nothing to do with the button or the style, it's the fact of the layering, and that there's items over here invisible that get in the way. So when we click new, so we manage to click new, when this list has items in, if you hover around here, this border flickers, and you can see it doing it there. So it's hard to see, but basically it causes this to flicker over and over when you're hovering just in the right spot where that label is. It kind of bounces between. And I noticed it when just hovering in and out of this UI. It was like causing this kind of flicker like that, but when the mouse wasn't moving. So the fix for that is to basically make it fully invisible once the opacity is down and bring it to the front to fix the hover effect. So now onto the operation. Let's scroll down and I've put the operation here. We need to bind the combo box to an actual operation. And I don't believe we have it yet. So we'll have an item source. We're binding to the actions page view model. So we'd want like drawing template operations. No, we don't have anything. So we need to go into the view model, which will be the actions page view model. We'll add it to the drawing template section, not in the methods. We want it in the members, drawing templates. And then here we'll need public observable collection, and it should be, we should already have the actual drawing operation. There we go, drawing template operation enum, and we just need to do the same as what we've done with many others. So drawing template operations is what we called it, and this wants to be the enum.getValues, and it will be the drawing template operations. And I think that is it. Or drawing template operation. And oh, obviously a new observable collection of those strings as well, or those values. So now we should have, if we compile, because it will be the class that needs to bring this in, click new. There we go. So now we have the items in there. That was simple enough. We want to bind the selected item now, and that will be into the selected drawing template list item, and then we want this to be the operation. That should give us a fully bound and usable operation. There we go. So it's got reload, got set. If we run this and just check, we can change it and save it. So we go to actions, drawing template, new, and you can see this is now fixed. This hover effect works and the click works everywhere. Description, we'll change it to set, save. We'll make another one and tap between them. You can see that's worked. Next up, we want to show the current template only when we are replacing. So every time we want to change a current one specifically to a new one, we need the replace command. We want the reload to hide both because there's no reason to show either. We're just reloading and refreshing whatever the template is. And the set will only need to show the new template. So for that, we're going to need some isVisible properties on the drawing template view model it'll be. And then in here, because we don't have the properties, we just have the operation. We need to say when the operation is a certain thing, we have visibility. We've done this again before. In fact, this can be public. It's just a public getter. So public Boolean, and it will be current template path is visible. And that will equal if the operation, which we can do that operation, I guess, is, and then it will be the replace. So it's going to be drawing operation dot replace. That's the only time you want to show the current template being visible. We'll copy and paste this and make one for the new template. And then this wants to be shown when it isn't a reload. So reload will show nothing, but both of the others will show new template. So now we combine the visibility of these current templates and new templates to that. There's a label and a combo box, so we're going to have to do visibility for both, but that's no major issue. Is visible binding selected drawing template item is visible current. There we go. Copy that, paste that. Go into the new, we'll paste them again and just rename this to new. And then hopefully that will work when we now change the drop down. So now set has got new, which is correct. Reload, oh, reload hasn't worked. Reload should hide the template and replace, oh yeah, something's not working at all. So yeah, that's completely broken. Oh yeah, of course, we haven't fired the event changes. So we have, where are we? This view model, these two are just public getters. So they're never going to fire that something's changed. But when we change the operation, we need to fire this notify property changed like we do for the has changed. We also need to do it for the other two properties. Otherwise, they'll never get reevaluated. So current template path, no, is visible, and new template path is visible. Hopefully that's all it was. I mean, it's pretty simple logic. It can't be much else. So reload has hidden both of them. Set is showing the new. Replace is showing both. Yeah, so that is correct now. So now we need to bind something to these templates. But before we can do that, we really need to have templates to select from. So that will bring us to this manage templates. What we want to do is have, clicking this button, browse for specific files so we can select them, and then add them to this list, which I also don't think we have. So this is going to be quite a lot of things to do. Let's start with what we know, which is we're going to need a dialog for browsing for a file. So we go to dialog services, copy and paste this folder picker and call it file picker. And there shouldn't be much work. All the logic should be the same. And this will be open file picker. So everything seems to be the same so far. This will be a file picker open options. Select a sheet format, which is what they're officially called. And we might even rename the drawing templates at some point to sheet formats. It's just I class them and call them generally in SolidWorks. You call them drawing templates. That's what it's known as. At least when I worked in CAD, we pretty much called them drawing templates, not sheet formats. We'll definitely need a filter. So file type filter, let's see what this is. It is a list of file picker file types. So we will open this up. We'll do another new file picker file type. And then we'll open that up so we can set properties. Now it looks like it needs a name, is it, at the start then? So this will be sheet format. And then in here, what do we have? Probably patterns is all we need. Now it's the same as what it always has been in Windows. It'll be star dot and then the extension, which in this case will be a SolidWorks DRT, which will be a drawing template. And you can see even the name extension hints that you typically call it a drawing template, a DRT. So to be honest, let's just call this a drawing template. I know sheet format's the official name behind the scenes, but it complicates people when they're using it and they know it's a drawing template. Patterns, there must be something wrong with. Oh, that's going to be an array. So you can put multiple patterns. There we go. And now return is not quite this. It's similar, but it's not. So we want to return, this will be files. And then you can see how we check if there's an absolute URI, return the local or the original. That'll probably stay. So we just need to remember that. We'll select on the file. It will be the path. And we want the path is actually a URI, I think. Oh, it's a storage file. So call this file. File.path is the URI. So now we're where we were with the folder. And we can check in here if it is absolute URI. If it is, we'll return the file.path.local path it was. And if it wasn't, then we'll return the file.path.original string, which is what we had before. And the end should be a, in fact, we're not returning the right thing either. We've got a string question mark. That just wants to be an array of strings. And this can now return a to array. So that should then open up a file picker, allow us to select multiple as true of this file type. It returns that, we check the paths, and we get basically a string of the full path and return them. This is awaitable as well. So to now invoke that, we'll need to go to the add button, which is add templates here. And we'll need to do a command binding, and then we need a command, which will be add drawing template path, or paths because it's multiple, and it will be a command. Now we need to make this, so we'll copy that, go to the view model. Now this will be the methods for drawing template. And we go to the bottom. We can start a new method now, so private async. Tell about a new keyboard, I can't type. And this will be add drawing template paths. We don't need to pass anything in. This does need to be a relay command though. And now in here, we already have access to the dialog service because we've used it already. And we can invoke a file picker. And all we'll need to do for that is just store the paths. So var paths equals, and then the dialog service dot file picker. Oh, no, actually, that is a silly thing to do. We've made this literally specific to our one. So what we actually need to do is maybe pass in a title. I'm thinking folders are generic, files certainly aren't. So this needs to be a title. And then we will want basically the filters. So I don't know whether to pass in. We can either pass in the exact type, but that puts a reliance on this class and Avalonia platform storage. But anywhere we're consuming this, we're in Avalonia. So I think it's okay to just accept a list of these. I mean, the only other option is we'd have to recreate an exact class because we do need to specify a title and patterns inside of each. So we're just going to return a list or an array of file picker file types. And then call it file types because it really is needed. And then for that, we can cut this bit out and set it to file types. We can pass this in here. And that allows us to do that. And I suppose if you don't want to specify this, we should probably just paste in a new one. Or in fact, if we did if file types equals null, and there'll be a shorthand to this after. If we type it this way, oh, you can actually do .all like that, can you? Yeah, so we can actually pass in that. And then control dot's telling us we need to mark this really as nullable, so we know it's not passed, and we initialize it in here. And I was presuming this was going to hint at the null coalescing shorthand, and it hasn't. So I've wrote it the long way so you can see and understand. But a quicker way of doing this when you want to set a value if it's null is you can just literally say file type question mark, which is null coalescing, equals, and then the value. So this is the shorthand, but it hasn't actually picked up and recommended that, which I was expecting it to. So this is just a nice shorthand of saying if file types is null, set it to this value. It's like a one-liner. This then is also telling us we shouldn't return null, we should return a blank array, which is correct. And everything else is good to go now. So now we can use the file picker without specifying file types, just a title. And we can even default the title if we wanted. So we've got select a drawing template. So we could even do title equals select a file. And then it's as simple as that. We also need actually Boolean allow multiple, and we'll set that by default, probably to false to be honest. By default, it's not normal that you want to select multiple in files. I'll just specify the types so it's a bit more obvious. And there we have a more universal file picker now. So we can call file picker with nothing, or we can specify some or all of the parameters. With that done, we now need to commit them to the database. So we have a database service, and we won't have this. Add drawing, so we need add drawing template paths. And then we want to pass in the paths. We'll create that method. And then we'll move this into the drawing templates. And it's actually stored in the settings, if you remember. So we'll have a data model for settings, and we put them in here. And in fact, I'm going to rename that from drawing template search path to drawing template paths. We're not going to search a folder now. We're going to add the actual files. In paths, I don't know why it's given us a task. I've done something wrong on the invoker, obviously. That is because we didn't await that. There we go. We get the paths coming in. So the first thing we want to do, if paths.length is 0, just return. There's nothing to do if there's no paths. So I'll say ignore empty. And then we'll have, we need to get the existing one first. So get existing paths, which will involve getting the settings first. And then the existing paths will equal settings dot drawing. Oh, that's not done settings. It's pre-jumped it. There we go. Settings dot drawing paths. Once we have them, we need to basically what I'm going to do is loop over the existing paths, and if it doesn't find this specific path per one, we'll add it. So there's many ways of doing this, but this is a simple way. So add if not already in the list, and we'll just do a for each path in paths is what we want. So we're going to loop every path we want to add. I'm going to say if the existing paths dot any. This IntelliSense is terrible again today. Existing paths dot any, and then basically compare them with the other path, but ignoring case sensitivity. So equals f and the path that we want to check, and we don't want the ordinal ignore. What I always use is invariant culture ignore case. So regardless of your computer's language and the case, it will just compare strings in lowercase. And then we want to invert that because we want to say if it's not in the list, so we haven't found it, then we can add it to existing paths. So that's now correct. This will want braces. There we go. Oh, why has it done that? That's not what I was expecting. No, we want that is what I presume it was complaining about, which it was. Finally, let's sort them as well. So sort alphabetically. we want the existing paths. In fact, at the same time as existing paths, then we can do settings.drawing templates and then existing paths, but we'll order it at this point. So just a default order should work because it's a string anyway, and by default it is an ascending order. We'll have to list that though. So that will sort alphabetically and set the value in the settings. And now we want to save the settings and pass them in. So if we've done all that right, we should be able to commit and save to the database. I don't think we're fetching yet, but let's see if they at least commit to the database. And we've now invoked it there. So we won't get them in the UI. We're not even bound to the list, I don't believe, but we should be able to test if we can add them. Oh, I've renamed the database, so we need to kill the database. So I'll kill rider to delete the database and then reopen. It appears there. So let's see if now the plus works. There we go. We can browse. And this is the default folder for SolidWorks sheet formats. So if you have SolidWorks installed, if not, you can just right click, new, make a text file, say, give it a name, and then end it with .sld.drt, and you'll be able to find them in here. You'll have to have the view to show extensions, otherwise it'll still have .txt at the end. So we select one of them. Unique constraint failed, settings ID. Okay, so this mustn't work. And I bet that's because the settings we're sending in is the exact same settings with the same ID. Yes, it is. So this in theory should work. We've removed the settings, then we're telling it to add the settings. But then I guess it doesn't know which to do. I'm sure that used to work. So instead, let's just check. If this already exists in the database, so we can just do that by checking the ID. So if we should only ever have one, but if we find one, we're going to presume it's existing and we're just going to update that single one. So if settings.any.id equals settings.any, that is correct. It's made an assumption right for once. And then in here, we'll want to update instead of deleting it. So this will be context.settings.update. Otherwise, we will then want to do what we did before, which is to remove them all and add them all. I'm sure we already tested that worked, but hopefully that will fix the issue. So if we add a new settings and it doesn't have an ID, or it isn't tracked by the entity framework, then it will add it, but this should work anyway. There should be a workaround for that. So now if we go to Actions, Templates, Add, Browse, Select. There we go. So it's closed and hasn't complained. So let's just save, and I don't think we haven't bound to the list, but let's just look at the database. So on the right side, click Database. So you can click plus, connect to database, add manually, select SQLite, and then you can do the plus to browse for the file, go into the build folder and select the settings. This will get you this database in the side now conveniently. And then we have, was it settings it was in? So if we take a look in settings, there you can see the path has been saved, a single path. So we know the save is now working. Let's bind this to the view. So that will be in the manage template, which is this list box here. And we actually don't have anything to bind to thinking about it. We haven't even added it yet in this view model. So in the drawing templates, we've got nothing here to bind to the paths. So we're gonna have to make that as well. So we'll have a public observable collection of string. Actually, it will be private, not public. And it's going to be drawing template. We'll want selected paths as well. So when we're selecting in the list, we want to know the difference between the full list and what's selected. So I'll have one for selected paths, which is blank by default, but it's an observable property. And then the public one can be the permanent list. So same thing again, observable collection of string, and this one will be drawing template and not selected paths, just paths. For this, we can just get, what we'll do is get the database directly. So we'll just hit it up every time you query it, we're just going to fetch it from the database. We want the collection first though, so it's going to have to be a new collection. And then after that, we can just call database service dot get settings. It's always going to return something, and we'll have the drawing paths. So as simple as that seems, that's just going to, every time you query this, it's going to hit the database up. So you have to be mindful of that. But as we mentioned before, this is a local computer. It's a very small call, and this is never going to be anything exceptional. So this is never really going to bog anything down. This will get fired automatically when we invoke the actions page view model. So this is going to get refreshed only when we come in and out of the actions page. So we might have to fix that later, but now we should be able to bind to this. So if we go to the drawings tab, in here we can now have the item source binding to this. And if that's right, we should also see it in here because we've already got one in. There we go. So now we have the actual item in. We want to bind the selected items to that other property we made as well, which was the drawing template selected paths. And that should just, whenever we're selecting, we'll have a new list. So when we come to delete, we've got something we can actually specify and delete. Let's fix that delete button as well. We don't want that always showing as visible. Where is it? Delete here. So in this delete, we'll have is enabled binding, and it can be the drawing template selected paths dot count, and I think that's it. As long as there's a count, it should work. There we go. And then control click to deselect. Now you can't click the button until you've got something selected, so it makes a bit more sense. Next would be the delete. So let's make a command. Let's just copy the command here, paste it down, change this to delete drawing template paths, and we're going to use the selected paths, so we don't need to pass anything in. But we can go to the actions page view model, down to the add, and we want one for delete. So we'll just copy the header, and type delete. First thing we want to do in here, don't presume the UI is correct, or we still presume the UI can be manipulated, and we still need to do some checks. So we need to first check if the drawing template selected paths dot count is nothing, then we can't do anything. And that should be this call. After that, we should have a database service where we can call delete drawing template, and we haven't got it yet. So delete drawing template paths. And in there, we want to pass in the selected paths. And this will be an observable collection, so let's just do to array. If we then control dot and generate that method, move it into where we want, which is in the drawing template here. So we've done the add, now we want the delete. So paste it in there. The delete will be very similar to the add. So we're going to get the settings. After that, what we want to do, I think, is simply get the existing paths, but remove any that exist in here. So we want to filter a list and say if it's in here, don't re-add it. So we can do it all in, we could do it in one line, but let's just do it in two. So we'll say filtered paths to keep. So it's hinting at whatever comes back from this is what we want to keep. And as that literally guessed everything correctly. So settings drawing paths is correct where the paths coming in have none. No way, it's literally got everything correct there. IntelliSense has literally guessed that entire line from what I've typed. That's impressive. I take it back. It isn't that bad after all, but there is a better way of doing this. So kind of got it right, but not 100%. So what I would do instead of not any, as you can say, and I believe when you look at the speed of these calls, calling all is faster. And it's where you want it to not equal. So you basically invert the logic and saying all inverted logic. And I believe that's faster. So all inverted or any not inverted are both the same, but I'm pretty sure when you look at the stats, not that it makes much difference, but that should be slightly faster. Just had to pick on IntelliSense a little bit. So get paths to keep, and then you just want to update the paths. And this is where you could say paths to keep and just ignore it. You could just do settings.drawing templates equals paths to keep. You wouldn't even have to make a variable, but just a bit cleaner to see. And it makes sense that what you returned is a filtered path to keep. It's a bit more explanatory. And then we'll just save. Then we'll call save settings and let it do the work for us. That should work now for deleting paths by effectively getting the existing paths, clearing out what's in this list, and then resaving it with the filtered out list. We already invoke it here. And then once we've deleted, I don't believe there's any async in this either, to be honest. I think we need to tal the UI. Yes, we do, because if we mentioned up here, this is going to get the settings only when we enter the actions page completely, not even tabbing in and out the whole page. This is the only time this will get fired. So we need to tell the UI that this has now changed because we just edited the paths. The same when we add. I don't know whether we've done it when we add or not. Add drawing, add paths. So this should need it as well. Let's leave it off that and see what happens without, so you can see the difference. And when we delete, actually no, let's just add it to both because we know it's needed. So raise property unchanged, and it will be name of I forgot what we call it already. Drawing template paths, was it? Yeah, so let the UI know basically. And this should update the list then. That now should give us a delete option, which if we bound to the button, which I think we did, yeah, we've got the delete. We're not going to confirm, I don't think, because it's such a small task to just add and delete these. I don't think we want the added pain of having to click confirm, because we're not actually deleting files, we're just removing them from this list. So first now, if we add another one, you can see the list is updated automatically. If we select, this button becomes enabled, and hopefully if we delete now, portrait will go missing. There we go. So let's add them all. We've now got all of them in the list. Let's select them all, delete them all. Yeah, seems to work. Save, set. So now what we need to do is, are these bound? No, we haven't bound these drop downs now. So we need to bind these drop downs. So whatever's in this list is actually a valid option now in these templates. And we have the property we want now. It's the drawing template paths. So we just need to bind to this, to be honest. And I think item source is the same thing. On the combos, I think it's still called that. So in here for the new template, exactly the same item source. And now do both of them have? I think it should work in here. There. Oh, that's kind of a problem. In this drop down, we don't want to see all the paths. We just want to see the file names. So it's working, but this is useless because you can't see anything and you don't want to see the start of a file path all the time. What can we do about that? Let's do a template then. So let's do combo box dot item template here, and then we'll do data template. And here we can just put a label like it always is, content, and then this is where if we just bind as is, you should see this is just completely stock. So it's exactly what it is. If we change this to test, we should see, well, that should actually say test. Let's just compile. The template's not working. Oh, hang on. Current. That's new. There you go. So you can see the binding works there. And then what we want to do here, we'll just do a, well, we're going to need a value converter actually. So let's just go to, I think we've made one before, Boolean to bold font. Let's copy and paste that. Call this file name converter. Do you want to add the following to Git? No. We'll call this one file name converter. And then in here, value is Boolean, this, that, the other. So not far off. We want value is string. And if it is a string, we'll call it path. So we can manipulate it after this. and then and, so we can get rid of all that. We want to make sure it is a path and it's not empty or not. Well, really, we don't care about empty, but empty and white space is still not valid to get a file name from. So we'll just say if both of them are true, so we have a valid path, or a valid string rather, we can now call path. We can now call path dot get file name. That's not the right path. Path dot get file name without extension. We don't need to see that. Otherwise, return the original value. And then that needs to be put on new lines because that's quite long. There we go. Convert back, we can't convert back, so we'll leave that as is. Go to the app and add this as a static resource next to the other one, which is there. We'll call this one a file name converter, just the same as the type. And now we should be able to find and use that in here. So we want it to be the string, but we want a converter to be a static resource of the file name converter. And if that works, we'll definitely have to compile for that. It should run that value converter on the string and make the drop downs. Oh yeah, wrong box, remember, current. There we go, that's what we want. So the value behind the scenes is still going to be the full path, but we're only showing the file name. And you can see, because I've added to the UI this tooltip with the current path, for example, you can still hover over and find the exact full path. Now in here, we probably want to do the same. So when we hover over these, we can tell what path they are. So let's just copy that, paste it onto label, and change this to just binding. So it's just the actual path. And then if we do the same again, if we hover, there we go. So now we can see the full path before selecting, and we can make a choice as to whether we want to select that item. Do the same for the new template then. And let's just give this a test, because I think that might be everything we now need. So if we go to set, we can set it to landscape and save, make a new one. Let's click replace. We want to say change landscape to portrait and save. Null constraint failed, current path. Yeah, so that's going to be a slight problem because we can have a null reference when binding to the list if the path doesn't exist. I don't know why it's thrown there though, because it should have existed, but it is possible. So we'll fix that because it's valid to really be null. We don't really care if we don't have those properties. We want to update the drawing template data model. And these aren't required. They're not. We shouldn't have them as needing to be specified because they're not always specified. They're optional. So both of them are optional. We'll make them optional there. That might make us want to change the view model. So we go into here and look for the current and new path. We're already there. We've got strings here. We could change these to match because we might as well make them match. It makes more sense to have your view model and data model types matching. And then if we compile, I don't think anything's complaining. We'll need to delete the database again. Otherwise, we won't get that null constraint removed. So now let's go to drawing templates. We have to add all them folders again, all those files. And now we can, if we click save to reload, that's a good start because it's managed to save. Change this to set and landscape and save. And let's make one third one where we go from landscape to portrait, say, and save that. Delete one, come in and out. And that all seems to be working now. So although it's a fairly simple thing, you're basically selecting between a current and a new template. We have the visibility here, which is a little trick to do. We have a file browser we didn't have. We have this select here. That's also a thing of a select all and delete. You see, you're going to actually technically, you're going to lose these. You're not going to lose them if you don't save, but it's not going to be able to display the template. So if you're browsing here, you can see there's now no managed templates, and this is showing as none. But if we pull up the actual database, you'll see that at the moment, you can see it still has values. So at some point, we could update this combo box to not only have a drop down, but also have an existing value shown. And if you click save, to not override, because I can guarantee now, if we go out and in and tab in, you can see there's no save button on here. But when there was, if we did it this way, added everything, selected landscape, then portrait, or say change this up, save. So there's nothing changed here. And now we delete these. You can see the save buttons appeared because these have changed value. So when we delete them, it shows. But if we simply tabbed out, tabbed in, and went back in, the save button disappears. So there's one way of fixing it, which is to simply not show that it's changed, and then you can't edit it. But I think the real fix is to actually show the value here. So you can see as you hover, it's showing that the value is still there. You just can't see it. So that's something we might improve later. But for now, you generally don't add these, select them, and then delete them. So if we now go out and in, you can see they're there again because they match now. So I believe that is now everything in all of these settings done. So this actions page is completely done. We can either do some cleanup or we can move on to the process page, which is quite quick, which involves just adding a bunch of these actions that we've made to a process list of what we want to do on a file. So open the file, say run a custom property job, a save model job, and then close. That's what a process is. So we can do that page. That's pretty much a one-page page, so there's not much to it. And then the home page will be selecting a process to run on active files in SolidWorks. So we're not far off getting something operational.